If you have been a Christian all of a week and you start trying to take my nuanced advice, you are going to shipwreck your faith. So here's the question. This individual calls it a conflation argument. Okay. This is the idea that if someone does one thing you don't align or agree with, then you must stay clear of it all. Okay. So here's the idea. A video game. The Last of Us 2 has content that seem to be worthy of canceling the game. Or maybe sex scenes or an LGBT agenda. So even if it's only a scene from a game, and this happens in movies, okay? This is very, very popular in movies, for example. I don't know if you guys have ever heard Christians say something like this. There's a sex scene in that movie, therefore no Christians should watch that movie, okay? Or that movie takes the Lord's name in vain, therefore no Christians should watch that movie, i.e. one should avoid the entirety of it. Movies, TV, things like Supernatural, Lucifer, Legion, etc. Fictional shows that cover biblical-esque material, usually going well outside the realm of reality, often making things up as they go. This reminds me of the movie Noah. Okay, the movie Noah was meant to be about the biblical flood story about Noah, and they took a lot of source material from outside the Bible and created quite a fantastical story. So, again, Christians shouldn't see it at all, is the argument. Okay, continuing on. Thus being angrily met as blasphemy or heresy, that since true biblical content was not used, it is evil and distorting the gospel, and one should refuse to watch any of it, as a result, real-world applications. Say a restaurant decides to be openly LGBTQ, or any political agenda push, or even use a place like Hooters as an example. All would agree that those tempted by those things should avoid it, but then you have some that shout to run away from it and take no part in it. That even going to establishments are turning to support evil. There are many examples, but this should give you enough, I would think. Okay? So that's the big question, guys. Here's the big question. So first we have to answer the question, if we're viewing sin happen, does that make us complicit in the sin by association or of necessity? That's the first question we have to answer. The second question we have to answer is supporting organizations that support sin in and of itself sinful. This is the question of boycotting and their effectiveness, should Christians participate in that, etc. And then we also have to discern industries that are sinful in and of themselves versus industries that are neutral but may have some sort of sinful side effect or aspect to them politically. Okay, so there's kind of three issues that we need to answer in this one. Now here's what I want you guys to know before we jump into this topic. Okay, this takes great levels of Christian maturity. Okay, how much are we to be in the world but not of the world is one of the heights of Christian maturity. This is where a lot of complaints, difficulties, problems, situations come into play. And we need to have a good understanding of how to be in the world but not of the world. This requires maturity and a lot of it, okay? So I want you to know we have a lot of younger Christians in the channel, okay? You guys need to handle this topic with great care, okay? You need to handle the topic with great care because I'm going to give some very nuanced advice in here. And if you have been a Christian all of a week, and you start trying to take my nuanced advice, you are going to shipwreck your faith. You are. Okay? So you need to understand your maturity level in the situation. This isn't to dog on you. This isn't to make you feel bad about yourself. This isn't. No. You don't send children into war. Why? Because it takes great maturity and strength of character to be effective in war. Okay? And a child is not prepared for that. A child is not ready for that. Likewise, what we're talking about is being right on the front lines of spiritual warfare. The war of the culture, the war of the society and mentality there. And so we need to recognize your maturity makes a big difference on how you're going to respond to this topic. Okay? Now, let's first talk about heading number 1. If you are watching sin, perceiving sin, or seeing sin happen, does that mean you yourself have participated in sin? And I think we can get some instruction from 1 Corinthians 5:9 here. We talked about this verse yesterday. Very, very powerful verse. I wrote to you in my letter not to associate with sexual immoral people. But then he continues, not at all meaning the people of this world who are immoral, or the greedy or swindlers or idolaters. In that case, you would have to leave this world. So Paul states clearly here, hey, I told you before not to associate with sexually immoral people, sinners of this sort. I didn't think I had to clarify then, but I clearly do now. I did not at all mean people outside of the church. He continues, way down here. What business is it of mine to judge those outside the church? God will judge those outside. So that's the first standard we have. What is Paul saying here? When you are in the world, you need to recognize the people of the world are going to act sinfully. And I'm not saying you shouldn't associate with them, because then you would have to, in that case, you would have to leave this world. So what Paul is clearly stating here is that when you're in the world, when you're interacting with people of the world, they are going to be sinners. They are going to live their lives sinfully. And therefore, that you should still interact with them. He says, I'm not telling you not to associate with them, because then you would have to leave this world. You're going to associate with them. You have to associate with them. That's the first principle. Okay, guys? So the first principle is this. When you are in the world, you are going to interact with sinners. It's just going to happen. Okay? And insofar as you are interacting with sinners, they're going to be continuing in their lifestyle of sin. And Paul says explicitly, God judges those who are outside the church. He says, what business of it is mine to judge those outside the church? God judges those who are outside the church. Okay, so that's the first principle. As we engage in the world around us, we are going to be interacting with sin and with sinners. And Paul says explicitly that that doesn't compromise you. Okay, so, and I think there's one more example that I'd like to give on this. If you interact with a piece of media, movie, video game, are you interacting with that movie to participate and enjoy the sin in of itself? Or are you interacting with that piece of media not to enjoy the sin in and of itself, but the sin comes almost as something on the side, if that makes sense? It happens to be sinful or have a sinful aspect in this way, but that's not the focus of it. Okay? So, I think a good example of this would be a sex scene in a movie. Let's say you're watching a movie, and you know this movie has a sex scene, and you turn on the movie, and you're kind of looking forward to the sex scene. You want to see the sex scene, okay? And you heard it has a sex scene, and you can't wait for it to get to that part, okay? To me, that's watching the movie for the sin. You want to watch the movie for the sin. Therefore, that is in and of itself sinful. Okay? Christians ought not to participate in media in that way. And this takes great discernment. Why? Because it cuts to the heart of the matter. I told you guys I'm giving you nuanced understanding of this. You have to know your own heart in this situation. Why am I doing this? Why am I watching this movie? Okay? If you're watching it for the sin that's in it, then that is sinful in and of itself. But you then need to take a step back and put yourself in a different situation. Put yourself in different shoes. If you are watching a movie and it happens to have a sex scene, it pops up, okay? Have you all of a sudden sinned just by virtue of the fact that you were watching this movie? No, this gets to heart motives. This is why Jesus talked about the motives of the heart, okay? That's what matters. Same thing with a movie that might take the Lord's name in vain, okay? Do you revel in their sin? Do you love it? Do you love that aspect of the movie? Or Are you like, whoa, I didn't know they were going to do that in this movie? This is a big difference, okay? It talks about the motives of the heart, how we're built and wired. And we need to understand, you need to discern the motives of your own heart when you go into this situation. Now, I have an author I really, really like, okay? And he explicitly says that he does not think that he sins by watching others commit sin. And I agree. In fact, we get biblical pictures or images, even in the Bible. The Bible, as a book, is the Old Testament story of film, the Old Testament equivalent of film. And what do we read about there? We read about men and women committing sins. Okay? It talks about it explicitly. And sometimes in detail. Okay? When it describes David looking on Bathsheba, committing sin with her. It doesn't hide these facts. They're there out in the open. But the question is, does it present it in such a way as to incite your heart to lust? Does it present itself in such a way as to encourage you to sin? Or does it simply present itself as a fact of the matter? Okay, so that's a key idea. So John Frame says this: if film actors wish to commit sin before the camera, that is their responsibility. I don't believe I commit sin when I, in the normal course of my cultural pursuits, observe what they, without consulting me, have chosen to do in public. And I think this is a great stance, a great standard. If you happen across somebody who is committing sin publicly, openly, that doesn't mean you necessarily are partaking in their sin. It goes to heart motive. Are you really looking forward to X movie because it has X actor or actress naked in it? And now you want to watch it in order to catch that nudity? That's sin, because it's going to your heart motive. Your heart motive is off. Your heart motive is wrong. Or are you watching the movie, looking forward to the movie, and that happens to come up and hit you? Okay, those are different things. And in one of them, it's sin for you, and in one of them, it's not sin for you because it goes to your heart motive. So that's the first key. But again, Frame says this: still, I avoid films where the nudity and simulated sex are the main point, or in which they overwhelm the whole atmosphere of the film. There are some films, pornography is an extreme example of this, but there are other films that aren't explicitly pornography that are so about nudity and sex that I think in and of themselves a Christian ought not to be viewing them. Just period. That's what the movie's about. It's about that sensuality. It's about that lust. Just stay away from that. Why are you watching that film? What's the point? What's the purpose? Okay. So this is a key idea. Now, again, this calls for balance. This calls for balance and individual maturity. If you are prone to lust, for example, if you struggle with sexual immorality, you should probably stay away from media that promotes sexual immorality. That's not going to help you. It's not going to encourage you, and it's going to take you off the right path. Okay? So that's the first key idea I want everyone to understand. This is a know thyself situation. This is a know thyself dilemma, because you have to recognize, what proclivities and inclinations do I have? Do they lean towards God and Christ? Or do I struggle with certain sins that I need to stay away from? Here's something else I want to say on this subject. Just because you struggle with something doesn't mean every Christian necessarily struggles with that thing. If you are prone to lust and you should stay away from movies because they have a lot of lustful things in them, doesn't mean this Christian should stay away from movies because they have lustful things in them. I think this is something we do all the time in Christian circles, guys. I struggle with X, therefore all Christians should stay away from X. No. You struggle with X, you stay away from X, and then you get involved with Y. Okay? And then Christians who struggle with Y should stay away from Y, but maybe they should get involved with X. This is how the church body as a whole, individual Christians, can all do their part so that we can be in individual aspects of culture and society. So if a Christian doesn't struggle with the typical pitfalls that are present in media and society, that Christian should dive in and be involved. So here's where a lot of Christians go wrong. I struggle with lust. That movie causes me to lust, or that movie has a sex scene in it. I wouldn't watch that movie. Therefore, all Christians shouldn't watch that movie. Stop it. Stop it. This is a problem in Christianity as a whole. Okay? When you take your specific sins and you impose them on the rest of the church body and say the rest of the church body needs to follow my hedge of protection in order to stay safe. And this goes the other direction too. You're passionate about something, you love this specific topic or this specific idea, you're energetic about this, and now you say all Christians need to be passionate about this topic. All Christians need to be energetic about this topic. No, stop it. We need Christians who have differing proclivities to sin, and we need Christians who have differing proclivities of passion and energy for the kingdom. And we all need to come together, and we need to form the squad that does a great job in media. They don't struggle with those sins. They're excellent at being able to break down a film, and they can go into that arena and be there for Christ. And then we need to have Christians who do a great job with video games. And they don't struggle with sins in those areas. They can go into that area and be effective for Christ, and they can focus on that. And then we need to have Christians who are effective in political arenas and political spheres. But here's the problem. When you're effective in a political sphere, you see that as primary. And then all the other Christians who aren't doing what you're doing, who aren't effective in the political sphere, they're doing it wrong. We need to not do that. Okay, guys, that's a key idea. And so that's related to what we're talking about right here. By viewing somebody participate in sin, you're not necessarily participating in the sin itself. You are, but if you are prone to sin in those ways, you should stay away from those things. Know thyself. Look, what I'm saying is this is a heart matter, and you have to answer to God for this. Even if I were your pastor and you were like, can I watch this movie or can I not watch this movie, etc. But my answer is going to be, I don't know. How has God made you? Has he made you to do these things? Do you struggle with sin in these areas? If so, then you should stay away. Or are you effective in these areas and you don't struggle with sin? If so, then maybe you should be engaged in this area. I don't know, okay? And that's the thing. Everyone wants a quick and easy answer. Everyone wants to just say, yeah, stay away. Or no, this is fine. But it's not quick and easy. I don't know your heart. You know your heart. And before your master, you will stand or fall. Not me. You're not going to stand or fall before me. You're going to stand or fall before your master. So discern your heart, discern your motivations, discern your direction, and stay away from those things that tear you down in your walk with Christ, and lean into those things that build you up. So that's the first key idea. All right, here's the next argument that comes up with this. The next argument that comes up with this is, okay, well, you are now supporting an industry that supports sin. So you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't support an industry that supports sin. Okay? So, fine. I grant that you can watch a movie or you can play a video game that isn't Christian because you're saying you don't struggle with those things. Fine, I'll grant that. But the whole industry itself is sinful, or the producer, the directors, etc., are sinful. Therefore, you shouldn't support that industry anyway. That's the next argument. This is a question of boycotts. Now, fortunately, on this topic, we also have biblical direction and guidance. Okay? And so I want us to go to what the Bible says on this. I have the right to do anything. This is 1 Corinthians 10, starting in verse 23. Paul, I have the right to do anything you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but not everything is constructive. He's trying to manage all these things. No one should seek their own good, but the good of others. So you need to ask yourself in any of your endeavors, am I doing this selfishly for me, or am I doing it for others? Listen to this, guys. Eat anything sold in the meat market without raising questions for conscience, for the earth is the Lord's and anything in it. If an unbeliever invites you to a meal and you want to go, eat whatever is put before you without raising questions of conscience. But if someone says to you, this has been offered in a sacrifice, then do not eat it, both for the sake of the one who told you and for the sake of conscience. I am referring to the other person's conscience, not to yours. Why is my freedom being judged by another person's conscience? And he essentially says, because you're putting a stumbling block. Okay. Now here's the key idea at this point. In Paul's context, if you wanted to buy food, you would go into the marketplace and you would buy meat. Okay. Hey, I'll take some of the beef. Well, guess what? 9 times out of 10 in the marketplace, this meat was offered to an idol. It was sacrificed to an idol. What they would do is they would, I'll just give an example. They would kill a cow and they would say, we're killing and offering this cow to Baal, the false fake god. Okay. And then they would cut up the cow, and Baal would be happy that they offered a cow to them. They would cut up the cow, and then they would go to the marketplace and offer the meat. Do you want this ribeye? And a Christian would come along and buy that ribeye, and now they're eating meat that's been sacrificed to an idol. And here's an argument that was going on in the early church. Guys, that meat is being sacrificed to an idol. You are supporting false worship, idolatry in the marketplace. You're supporting that. You should stop buying meat in the marketplace. And that was an argument that was going on. It's the exact same argument. It's the boycott mentality. You have to boycott this because that industry is supporting idolatry and false worship. And yet, what does the Bible say? What does Paul explicitly say on the topic? He says, go buy your meat. Don't ask any questions. It doesn't matter, Paul says. Go buy your meat. Don't ask any questions. Why? Because we know that you're not affected by that false idolatry, because you're just buying your meat and going and cooking it up. And you're just making dinner. All you're doing is making dinner. Okay? So what Paul's principle here is that boycotts are not a requirement. This goes back to the previous verse we read. In that case, you would have to leave the world. Okay? It just happens. If you are going about your life, you are going to do business with and give money to sinners. And not just people who happen to be sinners, but people who are actively promoting sin and love sin and glorify and honor sin. It's going to happen as you go throughout your life and your business. So, the biblical example is not that you must boycott when an industry is doing something evil, wrong, bad, etc. That is not the biblical principle. Paul just says, go on about your life, following Christ, and if you are participating in something or an industry that supports sin, okay. Otherwise, you would have to leave the world. And that's not the example we're given. Not only is whether or not a piece of media contains sin in it dependent upon the individual who is participating in it, but now the idea of boycotts isn't necessitated by the biblical text. Now, I do want to say this. If you feel in your conscience that you want to boycott a company, an industry, etc., have at it. Okay, I'm not telling you can't do this. Go ahead. And that might be an effective way to stop something. But now we're in the realm of strategy. Now we're in the realm of tactics. Like, how do Christians go about affecting and influencing the world for Jesus? And once you're in that realm, we're no longer talking about Christian necessity. We're not talking about what must you do because the Bible says it. But that's the problem. A lot of people put it forth that if this company or this idea is promoting something that's wrong, evil, bad, then Christians have to boycott it. And that's not the biblical example we're given. I'll give an example. We have a library, a public library in our town. And the public library started supporting something that somebody felt was non-Christian. And what was their call on Facebook out to everyone? We got to stop supporting this library, guys. All the Christians should turn in their library cards. They shouldn't take their families there, etc. This library is not following our values. Therefore, we shouldn't support it at all. Okay. I'm okay if you want to boycott something. I'm also okay if you want to urge and encourage other Christians to boycott that thing. But once you put it to the level of Christian necessity, once you put it to the level of this is what all Christians ought to be doing, you've crossed the line. Because Paul in 1 Corinthians 10 says that when you go buy meat in the marketplace, go ahead and buy your steaks, go home and make your dinner, and don't ask all of these questions. Okay? So this is the other piece. Do Christians of necessity have to boycott those companies and industries they disagree with? The answer is no. The answer is no. Just like Paul said even earlier in 1 Corinthians. In that case, you would have to leave the world. So, if a Christian buys a theater ticket to go watch a movie that has sin in it, they're not in sin themselves because they're supporting an industry that does sin. That blood be on their heads, i.e., the publishers, the producers, the actors, and the performers. That's not on the Christians' heads, okay? Guess what, guys? We need some Christians to go into the culture and society, into media areas of influence, into film areas of influence, to know what's going on and be an effective Christian witness in those areas. That might not be your calling, but it doesn't mean that it's no Christian's calling. Some Christians need to do that, okay? I do not believe that we are meant to sacrifice every single area of human Christian influence and just leave it all at Satan's realms because something's been corrupted. Guys, this is a personal opinion of mine, but this is something that has captured my heart and mind, and I hope I can affect a change in you. Guys, the gospel is more powerful than Satan. When Satan and Jesus get in a wrestling match, Jesus wins. When Satan and Jesus interact with each other, Satan loses. Okay? When the gospel comes into contact with the false teachings of the world, the gospel wins. Jesus is more powerful than Satan. And we need to get that through our heads. And yet what we're doing is we're taking the gospel from these realms because they have Satan's influence. That's precisely where the gospel is needed. Now, you may not be the one who needs to deliver it there. You may not be the one that God specifically chose to go in there and to be sent there. But that doesn't mean no Christians are to go there. That doesn't mean no Christians are to be sent there. Some are. Stop imposing your personal inclinations, your personal struggles, and your personal passions on all the rest of the body of Christ. You're trying to turn all of the body of Christ into a single member. Stop. Embrace the fact that there are members within the body of Christ who are different from you and who have something extra to bring to the table. That's how we can get into all of these realms. Okay? So, boycotts are not required of Christians. Now, you can ask Christians to boycott. You can boycott yourself. But once you get to the stage where all Christians should boycott, you've crossed the line. That is not the standard that we're given. Okay? So, 2 principles thus far. If you observe others committing sin, you're not necessarily sinning yourself. That's on them. Unless it draws you into sin. For perfect example, if you're prone to lust, don't watch films or play games or imbibe media that causes you to lust. Do you love Jesus or not? If you're prone to lust, don't go into lustful areas. An alcoholic doesn't go to a bar. That's the last place a recovering alcoholic goes to. So too you. And I'm sorry. The media today is heavily sexualized. If you struggle with lust, if you've had a pornography addiction in the past, you probably need to unplug from most media, guys. I'm sorry to tell you. But do you love Jesus with your life? Do you want to follow him with everything you got? Many of you struggle with these things in your past, and then you're imbibing TV shows and media and content that are constantly inciting and arousing you to impure lusts. And then you wonder why your relationship with Christ isn't very strong. I could tell you why. You're putting yourself in compromising situation after compromising situation. It's no wonder you fall. But then we go a step too far when somebody who struggles with all that says no Christian should do this. That's wrong. We need Christians who know the movies well. We need Christians who know media well. We need Christians who know what's going on in politics well, and to be able to bring the gospel into those realms actively also. That's a very important key idea. One final thing, guys. There are some industries that are purely sinful in and of themselves. They can't be redeemed. Okay? And I think pornography is a perfect example of this. Okay, so you say, Pastor Tanner told me that it's up to the individual and blah 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 blah. If you look at pornography, there is no redeeming quality to pornography. Okay, there's none. The whole point of it is sin. Okay, so stop trying to use logic to logic your way into it's okay for me to view pornography situation. It doesn't work. Some industries and ideas are purely sinful in and of themselves, and Christians should be against them. Okay, I think pornography is a good example of that. But just because there's a sex scene in a movie doesn't mean the entire film has been compromised. That is where discernment is needed. But we need to recognize that there are some industries that are just done. Okay, there are some industries you can't go further in. I'm sorry, right? We should redeem people out of those industries, but we can't come into those industries and just say, I'm going to promote this because, Pastor Tanner said it takes nuance. Stop using logic to disobey Jesus. Okay? Just stop it. Some industries can't be redeemed in and of themselves. We might need to have ministries, Christians go into those ministries, but we should not be participating in them. So let me give an example. I've been talking about pornography. Let's say, so I don't know that a Christian can watch pornography or a pornographic film with any sort of, without sinning, with any sort of grace or anything like that. I don't think that can happen. The medium itself is pure sin. But we should send some Christians to go to the adult movie awards convention in town, and they should hand out gospel tracts, talk to people, tell those people that Jesus loves them and they don't have to pursue this lifestyle of sin, to encourage them, etc. Now, who should we send? Should we send Joe, who's been a recovering pornography addict for 20 years? No, because when he goes and he sees his favorite porn star, it's going to immediately arouse all sorts of impure lusts and thoughts and ideas in his life and in his heart. We shouldn't send him, okay? I'm sorry, Joe. You're not on the pornography outreach team. I'm sorry. You're just not going to do it. But we should send some people to go there, hand out tracts, witness, evangelize, tell them that Jesus loves them and that they can turn from the sinful lifestyle. If that's the case, then let's do it. But let's not send the recovering pornography addict, all right? Let's send somebody else. That's why we have a whole body of Christ, okay? That's why we have a whole body of Christ. Let me summarize my few points. If you are trying to view media, video games or movies or otherwise, because you are interested in the sin in it, that is in itself sinful and you need to stop. If you struggle with specific sins in the past, you shouldn't go involve yourself in those areas. And I'm going to say something harsh to you guys, okay? We're on Twitch, all right? I'm going to say this. Many people who are on Twitch have struggled with video game addiction in the past, and it doesn't have the right place in their hearts and lives. Video game addiction is a real thing, guys. It's a real thing, okay? And Twitch is an arena that can promote those ideas. If it's causing you to fall into sinful lust and temptation, to chase after these video games, if that hook grabs you again and you're feeling addicted yet again, Twitch may not be your outreach. But for some of us, it is a good outreach, okay? That doesn't mean all Christians should avoid it. There needs to be a balance and there needs to be a know thyself when it comes to this situation, okay? So, you shouldn't go to participate in a medium where you struggle or have problems. And some industries are sinful in and of themselves, and we can't participate in those ways. But if you view sin in a video game or a movie, you are not necessarily participating in the sin yourself. And not all Christians have to avoid it just because you need to. And finally, when it comes to boycotting can be an effective strategy. It might be an effective tactic, but it's not necessarily so. And so there needs to be a discussion about that. And when you demand that other Christians boycott the industries that you want to boycott, unless they're sinful in and of themselves, you've gone a step too far. That's my summary on the topic.
Hey guys, Pastor Tanner here, and I firmly believe that iron sharpens iron. One of the important ways that we can all grow as Christians is to interact with one another. To that end, we have a link down below to our Twitch and our Discord where you can interact with us more in real time, either live or through that conversation. So please come join those platforms if you're interested. Take care. God bless. Bye now.